Welcome everybody in to the latest edition of Fan Zone Live. I am Zach Kyleman bringing you guys in this week alongside, of course, our motley crew here. Scott Burke, Slasher on my right, above me, CWise joining us once again this week, and special guest, two-time AFL Coach of the Year, very well credited AFL Coach Ron James joining us this week. Now not in chat, now on screen as we are getting to see. Welcome aboard, Coach. Glad to have you on with us. Tons to talk about, but how you doing lately, man? How are things for you?
I'm good, keeping busy as always. Always involved with something with football, whether it's breaking down film or going out and evaluating players. Just keeping myself in the hopper.
Nice.
Speaking of that, I just saw you announced a new was it combine that you're putting together.
Yeah, so I'm working with Tom Goodhines with Grid Camps, and it's an organization that tries out would-be professional football players and gets the information to the UFL, the NFL, the CFL, any professional leagues that want to do that. Working with some great people with that. I mean, Norm Chow is one of the coaches. I'm one of the coaches. Eugene Chung, some really great people that we're working with in this whole thing. And so I'm looking forward to it, and it's a great adventure.
Yeah, that Grid Camps is definitely a great spot for players to kind of highlight and showcase their skills. Definitely can attest, just as more of a fan of the USFL over the years, seeing that used to be a different name, but Goodhines and company have moved it to Grid Camps. But great spot for some talents. I'm glad you're working with them, though.
Crew.
Yeah,
Great
there's a lot of good people in that are doing some good stuff for athletes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we have a lot, of course, to discuss. It is past week 2, heading now into week 3. Much like last week, got to lead in with a lot of the, I would say, unfortunate items of the league that we have to talk about. And look, you got to cover everything. That's how it is, and you got to talk about everything. And we'll lead in. It's been a rough start. It continues to be a rough start. It certainly stresses me the heck out following all this stuff. I can only imagine what it's like for people that are going through actual issues with league teams right now. And I can go any other place and begin, but in particular, I want to just start this by saying if you're a coach or player that's going through any of these items right now in like Louisiana, Philadelphia, you name it. We've heard reports from Minnesota with people having issues. I mean, keep reaching out and keep stressing your issue is all I can say, because making sure that we're aware of what's going on, especially those in the industry at large, only can help us, I think, further talk and try and force things to change, because there are things that do need to change is the thing, and we are hearing you.
And it's got to start somewhere. Some people got to speak up for things to get changed, for sure.
Yeah. So, gentlemen, but yeah. I don't know where to begin. There's a lot. I mean, we're getting reports. Philadelphia, by the way, for example, they've gone through a rough go, but it sounds like they will be ceasing up operations this year to kind of just shutter things in. Sound like Louisiana's going that way, by the way, which
I was already that way.
I was already.
And, like Georgia maybe on that short list as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's going to be some stuff. A lot of changes. And part of the reason I wanted to have Coach James on tonight is he's been brought into a couple different situations where he's had to kind of mend fences and rebuild and kind of do some of those reboots. That's again part of the reason I wanted to have you in here is kind of give a little bit your thoughts, your expertise on what all's going on, how things can be saved. Can they be saved? I know you have a good positive outlook on things in general. So,
without inside information and knowing, how it's all set up and all that stuff, I just go by what I hear. It's heartbreaking for the players and for the coaches that are affected by, not getting paid, by getting put out of housing, not having what they need to go through the day-to-day life of football, really. And, and Christian could tell you the same thing. Like when you're in those situations, you rely on the league to back you up. And we were luckier in the old forms of the league where the structure was already in place, right? And so that when you had to, like I had a situation in Portland where it was run by the league. When we were in Houston with the Thunder Bears, we were a league-owned team and we were traveling every week. But all those things were being backed up by the league, the front office, and by the member teams that were pitching in to help out those teams that were being run by the league in hopes that those teams would be picked up by a new owner. When you start off with that mix of ownership paying part of the salaries and the league paying another part of it and trying to put it all together and trying to have facilities and hotels and meals and everything kind of being done on the fly, it's very difficult for a one-off, let alone a big league like we started out with so many teams. I would never throw shade on anybody and say you should do this or you should have done that, because that's not helpful at this point. But the reality is, if you start smaller and make sure everything is aligned properly and make sure that everything you put in place has standards and that everybody adheres to those standards, then you fall less likely to those opportunities for things to fall through the cracks, for players not to get treated well. And it comes down to me, like as a coach, it's all about my players. Christian can tell you, he played for me. I want to take care of my guys. I want to make sure, and I know that all the coaches that are involved right now are the same way. You want to take care of your guys. You want to make sure they're treated in a first-class manner. And we used to always say, this is our NFL. You know, we're going to treat these players like gold. We're going to make sure that they get everything they need so that when they walk on the field, all they're worried about is performing. Not worrying about where they're going to live, not worrying about where the next meal is going to come from, not worrying about the check's going to be stopped or whatever the situation is. We've been through those situations before in the Arena Football League at various stages. In the beginning, and people could tell you when the league first started, I was involved with the Albany Firebirds as an expansion team in 1990. Yeah, I'm that old. So I was involved with that, and I saw how that was put together in a first-class manner. Going through all the iterations of the league, it all starts with how the front office of the league itself sets the standards, what they do to make sure that financially everybody's on track, that everybody understands that we can't take the field unless things look right to begin with. And they would have all the way back from when the unions were involved, but also prior to the unionization of players, there was front office members that would go to every game, every practice facility, make sure that everything was in place properly so the players could make the most of their opportunity. And it wouldn't matter at the time what the pay structure was. That wasn't what it was all about, and I've seen it from very low to very high in the Arena Football League. That doesn't matter. It's the product you put out on the field. You only have one chance to make that first impression. And looking at some of the games in the first week, the first impression was off to me. It was pretty spot on with a couple locations, but as a league in general, the standardization to me wasn't there, and I noticed that from social media from the jump. When you have players being shown at practice with mismatching gear, they look like they're in a park. They're not being treated like professionals. They're not looking professional. What do you think the expectation is going to be from outside viewership, from outside sponsorship, for all the things that you're trying to put together? That was a little bit disappointing to me. Now, how can they regroup? I think that's a thing we're probably going to discuss through the course of tonight, but it's a process. You can't, wave a magic wand and hope this thing is going to go right. But I think you have to get back to some standards and make sure that everything you put together is reasoned, it's planned out, and it can't be just slapped together. And that's kind of my overall take on things, guys.
Since you brought up standards, I actually have got a picture kind of set aside. To me, this is one of the more egregious things that I saw over the last 2 weeks. They've played 2 games there now. Set up in Oregon. I know Coach Jones swears up and down it's safe. I don't see it. I don't see how that's safe. It's a very thin padding, lots of holes in those walls because they're not actually walls. Metal bars going across the top with no padding, going the cement blocks. Forget that the goalposts aren't the right type and aren't set up in the right spot. That can be fixed super easy.
Well, that's what preseason is all about. When you're starting up a league, everybody should be, having their fields put together, and they should have somebody from the league looking out to make sure that the standards are met. If this is the standard, what are we telling our athletes? If somebody goes over the top of that onto a concrete floor, what are you trying to do here? I mean, people will get hurt.
Well, or just over the top and lands with their back across that pole coming out, 6 feet out the back.
Different arenas have had challenges, right? But even in the pregame, I've been on fields where the league steps in and says, "Oh, we got to get padding behind this wall, or we need to fix this," and the officials talk to the groundskeeper people. There are issues that can be addressed right up until kickoff. But if you start off with this type of a process, there's nothing you can do. That's why preseason is vital. And then you look at those facilities and you say, what can we do? If we can't do anything, then we can't play here. So let's make sure that, okay, maybe this is a travel team. Maybe this is until we get this right, this is an issue we can't deal with. So I think there are a lot of things that when you look at it, the oversight is glaring. But again, back to standardization, right? Back to policies and procedures that should be in a manual. So when you buy a team, you know that the uprights have to look like this. There are certain proportions, there's certain whatever. And that can mean even like at an arena, you might have to buy an extra set of nets just to hold them up or to get a new motor. We had to buy motors here in Salt Lake City because they didn't have them at the arena. Some expenses you didn't figure you were going to have, but they were built into the structure of how the league was ready for play and your team was ready for play.
And that's part also why the league ordered a lot of new irons that were actually made out of aluminum because they were lighter and easier to move around and easier to transport. We got off the wall Facebook. CWise, as a former player, how do you feel about this?
So for me, as a former player, as a player who still got it, honestly, I line up on that field and I see that as a professional, as a veteran, somebody who's played, from the deuce to, AFL, you're not going to want to step on the field playing that. That's not right. That's not proper. Now, if it's, a lower league, you're going to work out to try to get in shape. Before you go to the AFL, before you get picked up, you're in the AAF or one AFL, whatever those other leagues. You'll have to come up against this in certain small, lower markets where they're paying players $200. That is some stuff that they get by. But at the AFL, at the level that is supposed to be considered the apex, from what I played in, from what coaches coached in, from what Scott from Slasher, from what he's been around in the community, we know this is not correct. We know this is absolutely not player safety, not top of the food chain. This is not what is considered the standard of the AFL. And there is a standard. There's the shield means a lot. That is definitely low tier. That's not what we would, even consider to want to step on the field. A lot of players that are super veterans would probably just pack it up and be like, you know what? I'm not even going to risk it and step away from that type of, they'll give it to the young guys, the ones that have no idea. But we know that that's not proper. So it needs to change. I wouldn't want to step on a field in that type of, environment. It's not safe. I know we're also playing in the AFL to try to get to the NFL. That is wear and tear on your body. Like you said, you fall over that, you hit that concrete, it's a wrap. We've been in arenas where it's had different type of end zone, certain type of small hazards, but that type of stuff has also been addressed. They'll put paddings up and make sure that that part of the stage that has, the slight part on the edge, it'll have padding, it'll be addressed. They'll look at that stuff and, they'll have the committee who comes in, the four guys in the suits that'll come in and check everything before game time. And they're looking at everything and they're saying, okay, that's not right. That's not right. Okay, everything else is clear. And
I've seen handrails. I've seen handrails 2 rows up covered in 6 inches of padding.
Exactly. And that's just the safety. That's player first. That's what we're privy to. So, yeah.
Now, in defense, they do say they do own walls. So they just don't have them to where they can work in the building they're in. That's a problem. So they did purchase them.
Even if it is the walls behind that end zone, having just flat out concrete is not safe. You got to have some type of, at least a little bit of spacing with some padding or some turf spacing behind that, just in case. That's dangerous.
And a lot of teams, I'll tell you, Salina's one. Salina's a great franchise, they've done a lot of things right, but they are one as well. They have similar concrete pillars. They're covered better. But they've got the blocks. They got similar setup in that. You do go over, they've got field suites all the way around. Well, because they have field suites, it's not a bunch of padding on the bottom. That is an issue in more than just Oregon.
No, absolutely, and I feel like Salina is a franchise who's been around for a while, so they should know better. You know what I mean? Oregon, you're literally dealing with a franchise that was brought in by an NFL player and whatever ownership group that they had behind it. People that have literally close to zero AFL experience beyond one person who played in the older days, with Coach Miles. So putting all that stuff together, having the playbook, having this is what needs to be done. If there's no communication, like Coach James said, from the top with structure, then it's going to be a domino effect. You're just going to have everybody out there in the dark trying to figure it out. They probably had no idea. You never know. Or it was just, we can just get by. You know what I mean? So it's all starts at the top for sure. I have no idea what's even going on with the league and how everything is going, because a lot of people are in the dark, and you know what, that's their business to do so. But at the same time, the stuff that needs to be addressed absolutely should be addressed in some type of statement, whether it's the players, for sure the player safety first, and just the slight issues that's going on around being the soap opera. Because I mean, they might like the attention, because of course all attention is good attention, I guess, even bad attention.
Getting your name out there.
Getting your name out there. It might draw in an owner or, a few, who knows. But from the way that things are going right now, it's sad, because I have a lot of peers, I have a lot of friends, brothers that are out there coaching that are not being paid right now. A lot of them that are players that just played, 2 games and are now back to their regularly scheduled program of working a 9 to 5 or trying to figure out where they're going to work, because they're not playing ball anymore and everything's in limbo, which is a damn shame. I mean, that's the heartbreaking part. That's the part of, what made me create that movie before, because people don't hear these stories. They have no idea how, people put, the athletes, and they see what we're doing, what we're grinding to get to the next level, but they have no idea that once it's over, you got to figure it out. You're stuck.
Yeah. I've heard from so many players this past week. They gave their blood, sweat, and tears to the league, and they feel like it's tarnished. They feel like everything that they worked hard for right now is getting thrown out the window in the court of public perception. Now there are a few teams that are doing things exactly the way it should be done. Just by, you look at Nashville, for example, and I saw this thing on Twitter. They said, well, have you ever seen blow-up walls at practice? Well, yeah, we had them everywhere I went. That was a standard, because if you're going to practice outdoors, you're going to make sure you have the right facility to kind of mimic what you're going to have, and not everybody can practice inside. So they're doing a great job with that. Their field looked exactly like an old AFL field looks like. They're getting good crowds. They seem to be run the right way. They've got professionals at the top, and they've got, veteran coaches that are handling things. But even in situations where you don't have that, if you don't know any better, if you're not being told from the top, it's a franchise, right? Let's be real about it. When you go to an NFL facility, really the only difference you have if you walk into the Minnesota Vikings as opposed to going into the Cleveland Browns is the logos and maybe the way that the halls are set up. But they have the same things, right? And so, we used to have similar things. You'd have a practice facility. You knew that was dedicated for your team. You knew that you would have to get your arena schedule set. And it was a hodgepodge because you don't own your own arena. But there were certain protocols that you had to follow to make sure that all the arena teams, basically, when you came to a game, the setting looked identical. Now, the game day experience is going to differ. It's different in Albany, New York, than it's going to be in Billings, Montana. It's going to be different in Nashville than it is in Orlando. All these things those are individual market needs. You're going to market your crowd differently. You're going to get different sponsorships. You're going to do things with local flavor. But on a national footprint, The NFL Network should be able to come into your facility and go to a game, and it looks exactly the same from franchise to franchise.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't, they're not going to look at you as a professional entity. They're going to look at you as semi-pro. You're putting everything out that looks like semi-pro. And so why would I invest in this entity? And that's a big deal. And I think that, again, I think they made a great shot at putting this thing out. Now they got to kind of retool. They got to figure it out. Is it still viable? Can we get it to where we have the standardization? And can we press forward and reattach some of these sponsors on a national level to get more viability for us down the road? I don't know what their financials look like, but I can tell you right now that if you're a startup league, you should have a financial plan that goes 2 to 3 years down the road so you can eat some of these losses, the startup stuff, and develop a strategy if you have these hiccups. If you have travel issues, if you have, visiting team hotels or food sponsorship issues, all these things that you might incur, you have to have your contingency plan for. And I think sometimes you get it wrong because you're in a hurry. You're trying to put this thing together, and you said, we're going to launch in 2024. We got to go. We've said this. We got to do it. And let's just hope it comes together the right way. And I think that's a mistake for a lot of leagues. But it's a shame that it happened to the Arena Football League because it was the pinnacle of indoor football. And you only have to look at the IFL to see how well they've done it and how standardized their play is and how much of a polished product they now have. So they went through all those iterations. Other leagues go through it. Now it's time for the Arena Football League to figure it out. Are we going to do this? Or are we going to just say, we tried and it's over? Those are your choices, really.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of wondering where you start with mid-season is the thing, because it's almost, we are going to bring this up because you have to bring it up, but it feels like at this point we have almost a power struggle in even the ownership and the front office, which does need to be resolved sooner rather than later if you want to start moving in a direction that at least the top teams want to move in, at least like Billings with Stephen Titus speaking out, or knowing my experience with Albany and knowing their group, they definitely want to be in the same footstep with them. So something's got to give. And that's what's going to have to change. My understanding is, at least like, for example, the front office, I understand that Travell Gaines is not around anymore, according to some reports that are floating around. So
that may or may not still be the case.
And that's the case. I'm saying
that may or may not.
Reports.
Yeah.
I don't know 100%, but clearly a lot of that revolves around the CEO and the current commissioner that are not doing their jobs right. And that butting of heads has to be resolved sooner rather than later. You can't run a league where you're going to have teams butting up with whatever office it looks like. I don't even know what the office looks like. It can be a legitimate physical place where there are league doings going on. It could be what I know of with the NAL, where it was just a few guys thrown together and, talking on the phone here every week. I don't know what Coach, it looks like, but you got to pick that and choose what you're doing with it.
Yeah, Coach, I think your name got brought up on Facebook earlier today about being the commissioner. Because Mike Lewis, I think, brought you up.
Mike Lewis. I love Mike. Mike was a hell of a player for us, with Mike the Blaze, Lewis. And he's a great guy. But in all seriousness, it takes people at the league level that have either run a team, from the top down, or you have to have people that are under you that can be sounding boards that have done that. So a lot of coaches haven't done it, right? So I have, in certain circumstances, I've been a team president, had to run, oversee ticketing, oversee sponsorship, make sure the whole thing comes together. I give you the whole financial plans for all the teams that we've run and all that kind of stuff. But most coaches just come in and coach. Mm-hmm. So how do they know what to do to help the owner out when they get into a tough situation? They're relying on ownership to be the lead. They're relying on the league to be the lead. And I don't really know in this structure how many people in the league office have actually run teams, let alone a league. And so, it filters down, right? And so how are they getting the support system put together? That's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge to retool, regroup, and finish up what they started.
And so what, it's all speculation. We don't have the tight details of what, financially, but with what we do know, with what is out there, what do they need to do? Where do they need to start to turn this around? Like, I've got ideas, but I'm curious what y'all have.
I'll let Christian say it first.
I mean,
I'm
there's like
happy to
three.
jump in, as you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's like 3 SKUs I can go to, but I mean, yeah. CWise,
Don't get me started. Shoot. Honestly, I've had these talks before. I've literally sat down with some of these people in the league, had meetings with CEOs, stuff like that. My opinion, I thought that the model that we did before 16, 16 actually going into 17 before everything shut down, we did China. And, we came back from China, and I literally told Sergio Gilliam, he was my roommate while we were out there. And I was like, man, it's not going to be the same. There's the pay from us getting paid way more overseas, to the minimal marketing, the minimal, push of the league for it to expand, especially internationally. When you have teams that are at the time in the NAL that are coming from Monterrey, Mexico, and having an ownership group that's paying players like Jacoby Jones to come out and play, then you have ownership groups that were at the time also within like Austin that were having Terrell Owens come out and play, that, and then you have a single entity league that is at the top, but doesn't feel the need to expand or, make things a lot better for the exposure of the league and the product, the players, the coaches. When you have coaches that are leaving in the AFL going to the NFL, i.e. Pat O'Hara, Jay Gruden, the list goes,
quite a long list.
Quite a long list now. Mm-hmm. As you know what I mean? So it's like when we have the ability to be overseas in China and we're getting paid double, almost triple from what we're getting paid in the States, and the league disbands again, then comes back, and it only keeps the certain ownership groups with, Monument, and of course, with Baltimore, Washington, Atlantic City, which Coach James was coaching and handling that up there, which I'm kind of curious how that restarted also with you, Coach James, with AC and coming back with that. But just as far as what we did in China, we took the method of kind of like how I said before, the annual mixtape tour, where we had multiple teams and all the players in one spot, and being able to go through different markets in China and basically gouge the attendance, the pricing, how the people were going to react to it. Now you have something like this where you have people that, for one, don't necessarily have the rights to the league, I guess, and they're getting it from whoever, and if you're renting it or whatever, people in Canada, however it's going, you're not going to be able to just come back with the Philadelphia market and ownership group and be able to put that same type of top tier AFL ownership together. Then instead of having a traveling team, having, only certain markets, and then small markets that can't compete with $1,000 base minimum, which they probably can barely compete with 400, to be honest.
It sounds like the contract was only for $250.
But that, so, and it sounds like that's changing again, right? Mm-hmm. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just like, give or take, you going back to what the IFL and what the other leagues were going to pay you anyway. Mm-hmm. So why not be able to put what people are seeing on film? Just had a movie that went out. You have the product on the feature film now. You have, of course, the history of the game, but come back and put it in markets and having the teams play on like how we did in China, playing in certain cities, having the teams, having the logos, having the market, be able to pitch it and present it like that, to where they can go across different cities instead of just being able to have a powerhouse like Nashville, Albany, that can handle everything. But then you have a franchise like, Southwest that probably can't sustain it and handle it. Iowa, who couldn't handle it. The changing of multiple cities in under a week from Lake Charles to Lafayette. You know what I mean? Like, not sure what happened with Shreveport, if that was viable. But nonetheless, if you can't get these teams together, do it a different method. If you're looking to push the league a different way, actually do it differently instead of makeshift here, makeshift there. We know this is going to be strong here with Minnesota and how we have it, but we're just going to hope these other teams hold on for dear life.
So what do we do today, though? You're
Well,
waving your magic
we're
wand.
If it's me today, I mean, honestly, from what I was seeing, you're going to have to cut the fat. You're going to have to keep the strong teams in the strong markets and be able to build off that, pitch and promote those to different ownership groups that have already possibly been in it before or wanting to buy in. You're probably going to have to change something up. Not probably. You're going to have to change something up structure-wise at the top with the front office and the communication, and also bringing in viable people and having a better vetting process on who's coaching, who's running these franchises, and their experience and history of the league and having knowledge of the league, and not just having people that are mutual friends or people that might have done it in the semi-pro or lower division or do it for less pay. You know what I mean? Actually, if you're going to do it the right way. You got to have the actual history. If you want to have the history of it, actually have the history and the people who made history of this game, this beautiful game that we played.
Yeah, I think, the struggle is always financial, right? And so right now, to fix this, what you need is total transparency. You need to own your mistakes. You need to come out and say, you know what, we didn't do these things right. And maybe, we should have done this or whatever. But here's where we're at. And in order to fix it, we're either going to have to centralize, like, they did with other leagues, and have it just out of one city, do a hub city, and then have those teams all play in that one city. And it could be, in Albany, you've got all the teams, or in Nashville, or you split it 50-50. And you would do that based on what workers' comp laws are, so that you're saving money in that regard and not getting hit all over the country that way. And then you look at the viability of those markets, just like Christian was talking about. What are your strong markets? What are you doing to market? There's only two revenue streams. It's ticketing and sponsorship. That's it. And typically in arena football, you're going to have to make $2 million a year to cover those two aspects of it. Otherwise, you're going to be losing money. That's basically the way it works. Now, the higher your payroll is, the delta changes, right? That number changes. But you got to make sure that you've got those numbers in alignment. So your financial structure has to come from the top, where they're saying, here's your franchise. Here's your blueprint for your franchise. Here are your costs. You're going to have to pay $150,000 to get a used field. To get a new one, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars. It's going to cost you this for that equipment. You go through the whole litany of what your costs are going to be, what the P&L looks like, and what you're going to wind up having in that first year. And if you can take that bite as an owner, you say to that owner, okay, you're probably going to, you're going to take a loss the first year. And if you do a good job of marketing your franchise, you can rebound, and here's how you can do it. You give them the outline, you give them the sketch of how to make this back, and then you sell it on a national level to either a private equity company to back you financially in case there are hard times, or to make sure that if we have to run a team as a league, financially we're solvent enough to be able to absorb that and to be able to do that for 2 or 3 years, or to get those type of owners like we did back in the day, who had some NFL owners that had extremely deep pockets. And whatever that is, it could be a private owner. It could be like in Tampa, the owner of the Tampa Bay Lightning also owned the Storm, and he was a part owner of the Red Sox. I mean, you've got a guy that understands running professional franchises. Have you done that? Do you own your arena or don't you? What's the rent fee? What are you trying to make out of this? Do you get concession percentages? Do you have to pay for parking? All these things that you're putting into how you're setting up your franchise are vital, and knowing what your viability is per market, and then be transparent about it. You know what? We brought in a few smaller markets, and they're great markets. They are great operators, great owners. But what we said was, you can keep paying your players a percentage the way you would normally pay them in a lower league, and we were going to pay that X amount of dollars to make up that salary. Maybe that was a misjudgment, and we apologize for that, but we didn't anticipate this, and that. So now, to reel it back in, here's what we need to do. Address every one of your missteps. Own it. That's what professionals do. That's what real men do. They sit down and they say, I made a mistake. I screwed this up, but we're going to make it right. And then you do make it right, so that the players know you've got their back. The coaches know you've got their back. Those contracts mean something. Those contracts are not just some scribbled, written down thing that you can just throw away. You're backing yourself up. You're backing your market up. Your sponsors see that, and they know you're a man of your word. They know that as an owner, you're saying you're going to do what you promise to do, and you're going to back your sponsors up, and they're going to continue to perform for you because they feel what you're going through, and they're going to feed your players. They're going to house your players. They're going to help out, whatever they want to do. The community will help. I've been to enough markets where the fans have had, like when we were in Pittsburgh, we had this group that would take all the players out and have a picnic for them at the end of the year. And we'd go on a road trip. They'd come on the bus and hand out food. These fans want to be a part of professional football, but professional football players and coaches have got to want to be a part of the community as well. You got to invest in them so they'll invest in you. That's what arena football was built on. That's a grassroots organization. It's been that way since day one. And that's why fan bases like Albany, New York, love their players. They love going to games, and they'll continue to turn out because they know the players are a part of their community and they want to be involved. It's just a beautiful thing when you've got that synergy. When you don't, and you fail to be transparent, you open yourself up to so much criticism that people just walk away. It's another entertainment venue. Why am I invested in you if you won't tell us what's going on, if you won't handle your business, and if you won't be an adult business operator in play, not just in words? So that's where I come from with all this stuff. And guys, I'm sorry I'm getting up in my soapbox, but I'm passionate about this.
That's why we wanted to hear.
I was in the Arena Football League for over a dozen years. I was involved in the Arena Football League since 1990. I mean, I'm an old dude, but I'll tell you what, the fire burns deep. And when you talk about the Arena Football brand, it means something. And it means something to a lot of people. But you got to be able to rekindle that, and you got to be able to put yourself in their position and then move forward with integrity.
Yeah, no one's gonna be on you for not holding back. That's what we want to hear. And honestly, I'm with you on that. I am not as long into this fan wise or even professionally wise as any of you on here, but that is the stuff that I've gathered from the history of the sport, and also what that logo means is what keeps me wanting to see it thrive. But I'm with you. There are ways of doing this correctly, and it's exemplified elsewhere, even and beyond, with the current leagues right now that are out there. You see which franchises are thriving, which ones are not, which are doing them correctly because of stuff that are, especially like you're talking, Coach James, grassroots. It is, I cannot stress enough how much I love the grassroots nature of arena and indoor for what it is, getting down and more engaged with fans that, it's a lot more hardcore for them. We are in a niche sport, and those people they are the diehards of this sport in particular, the ones that show up and buy the season tickets. They love the game a lot, and they love the talent and the up and coming talent that come through this game as well. And I do think that does exemplify what makes a great ownership group, and connects with the community much better, and the businesses and partners in those communities better, to help be a sustainable part of where you are playing at through and through. And tying it all back, that's where I kind of go in and I say, look, you identify who these teams are that are doing all those aspects of ownership right, in particular, all the right equipment, they treat their players right. There's no worries about what little pieces of what players and personnel need. There's no trainer issues or anything. There's no practice facility issues. I don't hear any.
Where they're going to sleep each night.
Exactly. I don't want to hear about teams that have and pick up. For example, I heard like last few weeks there's another team, another league that bought trailer parks or a trailer park venue that got places to sleep, and that was terrible. And I don't want to see anything like that, or players that get thrown out of hotels. All those things should be pretty. Hey, you got this? Yep, we're good to go. There shouldn't be any pause. If there's a pause, you move right on down the line, because I wouldn't want anyone to even ask that. If you come and approach an owner right out of the gate, and this is just, I've done podcasting the last several years, whether it's whatever league I talk about, you should be able to, I would think, lay out a path forward that says, hey, let me, not only finance sheets, don't just show me that, but give me everything that it should be like a quiz to me. If something doesn't sound right in kind of this relay of questions right out of the gate when I'm grilling someone if they want to be part of a league, then I'm instantly going to be backing off even further. I'm going to be asking second, third opinions right down the line. So it all starts with that when you get the right ownerships, but then it also starts with the office. And this is my main first step if we're talking solution is, again, we hear about these reports about there's some now butting of heads, and there's things where we're calling for people to be removed and kind of changed out. Great. To me, that's your first step. You want to start in the right direction and start getting out and doing things the way you want, especially with the public statements that a lot of people want to hear right now. And I'm with you. I want to hear something. Hey, if your commissioner's not doing anything, last I checked, teams should be able to, from what I understand, put forward who they want to change out. So if that is the case, the United teams come together, make a plan. I'm sorry, but if Commissioner Hutton is not doing his job properly, teams, from what I understand, unless the league, I don't know the league's inner and outer workings, but you should be able to switch out a commissioner with a certain vote of confidence on the call, if I'm right. But maybe I'm not aware, because that would be my next step. Put in place who is going to help run your league and get you your teams where you want to be as a better voice, and then start putting public statements out. Start addressing all the issues that are floating around that are way too loosey-goosey right now, or way too in the air about teams that may or may not be doing things right, teams that may or may not be closing shop or not, and just put down a path, because this is not going to work. Like, again, we hear owners already calling and oust and wanting a commissioner to step down. Well, step up to the plate, and you should be able, unless the league guidelines are wrong, do it yourself. That's the thing. Get the team owners together and put it your way. Then I don't know what everything else is going on behind the scenes, but to me, that's what sticks to me when I hear stuff like that. Is like, well, move forward then. Get a guy and make your commissioner be the commissioner that you want, or pick one that you want. That's where I'm at right now. Leadership's got to be the main step for me, is start getting someone that apparently can get you out in the public eye and more discussing things that are wrong right now. That's where I want to see. First thing first, then start addressing, and while you're at it, addressing your core teams that you need to reset for this year or get started for next year if you are going to keep building this forward. But it starts with
100%. You're right, because the whole thing is, it's a business, right? And I've always said this as a coach: if you're willing to take the pats on the back when things are going well, you better be willing to stand in the fire. And right now, you've got somebody, in a leadership position. I don't care whether you're a coach or whether you're a commissioner. When you're in the fire, that's when you got to stand tall.
Mm-hmm.
You got to show leadership. You got to say to people, hey, you know what? I got a plan. And you can ask Christian, when he played for me, we might not have won. We didn't win a lot of games in Portland, right? But when we came to a team meeting in the beginning of the week, I had a plan. I stood in front of those guys and said, here we go. This is what we got to do to win this week. And let's make sure. And after the game, it was my fault if we lost. And if we won, the players did the right things. That's what it takes as a coach. And it's no different in a leadership position as a businessman. You're in a business, and you should be able to stand in front of everybody that work for you and say, you know what? It's tough. There were some missteps, but here's what we're doing. And this is how we're going to resolve this issue. And I got your back.
Well, and there's so many talking points we got here. It's kind of like Iowa. Iowa put out their statement that the league didn't do X, Y, and Z, and all true. The league didn't do those things. But there are also things that ownership didn't do. People have been asking me for the last week, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? I said, everybody's got something to blame here. The owners weren't taking care of things properly, weren't getting things set up for the players properly, the things that they are responsible for. And then you have the league's half saying, hey, they're not doing what they said they're responsible for. So everybody's to blame when you've got loose leadership on both ends. As somebody who had season tickets in Iowa, I want to know where else I can catch a game right now. I want to know, I've got 2.5 to 3 hours to 2 other teams I could possibly go to. But we don't know who's going to be here this week, let alone next week. Now, if I had my choice, Honestly, I don't care who runs the league as long as they're doing their job. I don't care what name it is. I don't care what their title is. I don't care who they're related to, as long as they're doing their job appropriately. Um, but right now, like Christian said, I'd be cutting the fat. Iowa's already gone. There's no reason to have Georgia and Philly the league owned. Louisiana, you know what? I'd love to see them come back next year. They've got a great thing going there. They're not ready. The same thing with Oregon. They've got a good thing going there. They're just not ready. Cut it back for next year. Come back with Arizona and Chicago next year. Let's just trim it down to the teams that we know can handle this. Salina, Kansas. Yeah, they're not perfect, but I'll tell you what. You watch those games, and there's 2 layers of ads running all the way across the entire building. They're doing stuff right there. Southwest Kansas. I was just there this last weekend for the last somewhat Rampage game, and they paid for the players. The players got paid to come out there. They paid for the travel. They made sure that they had insurance covering those guys to play that game that night. That's the only check those players have seen so far, and it came from Southwest Kansas. So yeah, trim the fat. I don't care who's leading it. Just make him competent. I don't care if Lee's still in charge, as long as he's doing what he's supposed to be doing and being transparent, not ducking people left and right. Again, doesn't make a difference to me. Just do it and get it done, and do it now. Stop waiting. The longer we drag this out, the more insecurity we put in this league, the less people are going to want to be involved. I mean, I struggled last week. That's why the fan zone was kind of quiet last week. I was struggling. I didn't want to constantly have to deal with this, so I didn't post as much as I should have. So the people that do look for us, I apologize. I just wasn't honestly feeling it to keep it up to date after just the constant beatdown we've been getting. So, it can be done. A couple people heard me say this. I believe the league has good bones. I believe there's a solid structure to build off of in this league. Good teams, good owners, good franchises. But we got to get down to just those bones. We can't have everything else dragging us down. Sorry, my little rant.
No, I mean, I agree.
It's been that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of how, like I said, it's been probably beyond my timeline or on my timeline. If it hasn't been X-Men 97, it's been AFL soap opera drama. And I don't know which one has been. Well, I know which one has been better. It's definitely been X-Men 97.
X-Men's been pretty damn good. So.
X-Men's been pretty good. But I'm just going to say that, it's been a soap opera in the same from fans to, retracting games to putting on games to switching schedules to, we don't know necessarily what's going behind the scenes, how things are being moved, what parts are being moved. Fair. That's like entertainment anyway. But when it's affecting people's livelihoods, when it's affecting players and families and players stuck in hotels and getting kicked out of hotels with their families and kids and children, that's just beyond, that's not even acceptable, and just even, you see leagues, NAL, Oklahoma, you see other teams folding, stuff like that. That happens, but with this league, it absolutely, for me, the small market was never a good thing. And I knew some small markets that have been established and been around for a long time would do well or at least adapt. But beyond that, it was no point in, putting in markets that we know wouldn't survive. And that's because we've been here before.
Yeah, but the small markets aren't really the problem right now.
No, I'm talking about the big markets. The big markets that they were looking to put in that never happened. Louisiana, then that moves to a small market. Georgia. Then you have teams like Georgia. Yeah, you have teams like Philly. You know what I mean? You're putting these markets with no real ownership group or no backing in major media markets and no home and no arena. And that kind of makes no sense, coming out with, even though it's a tradition. But like I said last time, I don't remember in 2010 where a lot of the big teams came back. They weren't back yet. You know, we didn't have the San Jose's. You know what I mean? Like they weren't back yet.
San Jose, Kansas City, New Orleans.
Yeah, it's Kansas City, New Orleans, San Jose. I don't remember if Philly was back yet, but you know, those teams, which were benchmark AFL teams, were not back. And 2010 was like
it was fun.
It was fun. It was the Deuce 0.0, you know, and pretty much was a way for, you know, old ownership groups to say, hey, you know what? All right, we see what they're kind of doing. That actually might work. And we're coming back.
You know, looking at viable markets, right, Christian? I mean, that's the thing, right? Traditionally viable markets, but then you have to be careful when you're in them. Here's an example. You just look at Philly and then look at Albany. Traditionally viable markets, but they came to Philly and didn't show them the Philadelphia soul. They tried to make them believe it's the Philadelphia soul. Albany showed them the Firebirds, and it looked like the Firebirds. And so the fans aren't dumb. If they've been around the game, they understand it, they know what they see, and if they get ripped off with it, they're not going to come back. And so when you take a chance like that, you got to make those markets right. Otherwise, yes, go to Salina, Kansas, go to these markets that will be viable because they have been in other leagues. And they run with reputable owners that understand the business, and they got a chance to build. I mean, that's how it all started for us. Like in Albany, nobody heard of arena football when the Firebirds first arrived in Albany. And Joe O'Hara brought that team there, and Rick Buffington was the head coach. All these guys that had been around arena football that understood business gave them something to come to the arena for, and they sold the place out, right? But now when you come back at it, you better come back at it with the product that they're used to seeing, not come back at it with some watered down thing that they're going to look at and go, well, this is not arena football. And that's the problem that I have in a lot of reboots. I'm not just talking about the AFL, and I'm not on here to throw shade at all these guys, commissioner level on down. What I'm here to say is, like, there is a blueprint. I saw one of the fans that put something, a little blurb, but there's a blueprint. The IFL has that with some of these minor league hockey teams, and they're doing a great job with it. Business operators that understand exactly how to run a business, and either they own the arena or have a significant stake in the arena so that it makes sense for them to go in with another entity. You know, they could do that here in Salt Lake City because the guy that owns the Jazz just bought an NHL team, you know, and he's in that arena, and you know, there could be a third entity, right? So I'm not saying selfishly because I live here, but I'm also saying that basically you could do things like that when you have that infrastructure. And there is a blueprint for that. And so, I really hope that there are some potential owners that may look at this and say it's an opportunity rather than a deathbed, right? And so I think there are certain people that look at, and you can look at any type of business, right? You look at it and say, okay, I can salvage this, or this is a diamond that just hasn't been polished yet. And so if there are owners out there or prospective business people that look at the AFL product in a positive light, they could jump in and be a driving force to not only save the league, but to make it better than it ever has been. And Absolutely. I think that is really a great springboard to think about. Whether, I'm involved in it or not, I love the AFL for sure, but I'm a proponent of all these indoor leagues because I know that indoor football gives fans something to cheer for. It gives a community something to rally around, and it gives young players an opportunity to keep playing the game they love, get film out there, and continue their aspirations. And I think that all of those things are great, but I think that we need to figure this out, sooner than later.
Yeah. Definitely. That's the main thing.
For the vision you're talking about, absolutely. Like that's definitely some of those quick changes to more show off the better bones, as Scott puts it. That's where it's more of a sooner rather than later question, without a doubt, that you can't keep waiting around too much longer. And where I come back to saying, hey, if you want front office changes, now or never. Don't sit on that. Better to get that going and fixed right away, which rumors
by the end of this week, they should know who's in the league and who's not, who's running the league, and what the schedule is going to be for the rest of the year.
Yeah,
I know that is a lot of moving parts, but I don't think it's too much to ask in week 3 of the season.
No, I agree.
I saw a couple things talk about the IFL. Yes, the IFL has been doing a lot of things right, without a doubt. but they're still not perfect. The Louisville Extreme was not that long ago, where they dropped out in week 5. All these leagues, it happens everywhere. You know, NAL has been rough this whole year so far. So, you know, everybody's like, oh well, this team needs to jump here, this team needs to jump there. It happens everywhere. This is nothing new.
That's so funny. I hear you say teams like Louisville, and that take me to the Fire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Arena 2. You know, you talk about the Firebirds in the Deuce. You know, I did 09. Put up with like 2,000 all-purpose that year in 10 games. And honestly, I think pretty much had our franchise helped or ran by the River Rats, which was a minor league or a subsidiary to the NHL, a hockey team.
Yeah.
A pro hockey team. Yeah. So, you know, that their front office was pretty much doing a lot of the stuff for our AF2 front office in 2009. So, you know, saying the IFL taking that model with the hockey and all that stuff, the Deuce was doing that well before.
Well, the Gladiators did that. Dan Gilbert.
Could you tell the difference, Christian, between if you just take the players off the field and an empty arena? Could you tell the difference between an AF2 field and an AFL field?
Oh, in all honesty, you can tell by the arena size, field-wise.
No,
right,
facility-wise.
It's because it's quality of product and standardization.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerry Kurz was the commissioner for the AF2. All of those things were followed by the AFL model to a T, and that's what it takes.
Identical.
It takes standardization, right? That's what we're talking about. And the IFL, I think, does it really well, but the AFL, let's face facts. Teams were dropping before. You know, back in the NBC days, where players were making six figures, there were teams dropping. There were owners that just couldn't handle the financial model. I was looking at our Blaze stats from 2009. We had a $1.2 million player budget for salaries. You know, and you know, Christian's smiling. You could go back to that easily, couldn't you?
It's so hard to believe.
$130,000 a year, whatever, right?
Yeah.
You know, but it's those were great days, but there were still teams that were dropping out because they financially couldn't handle it. So all we're doing is moving decimal points. We shouldn't be moving the product, though. The salary structure can change. What's viable for you, you know, as an entity, should not change. You've got your math on what's going to make you money, how you're going to pay the players, how you're going to pay the league dues, whatever it is, how you're going to do all of those things that you need to do to stay in business. And at a certain point, if you look at it and go, man, we misjudged it, then you can go to the league and say, we can't handle it. But the league has to start by vetting the people properly.
Yes.
And saying, are they going to be viable? Is there going to be a check in reserve so that if these guys walk away in the middle of the season, we're going to take that check and finish the season out and make sure everybody's whole.
And the old AFL struggle with that too. You know, and let's talk about Chicago Rush and what they went through with the guy they put in, his owner.
Yeah,
it happens. You know, so but they have to act now is the thing.
Exactly.
Get this done now, clean it up now, so that for weeks 3 through 10, 11, whatever we're going to now, we got a solid product.
Yeah.
You know, aesthetic wise, you know what? If Oregon decides they want to keep those black skinny irons, but they fix the walls, I'll take it. It's not ideal, but I'll take it. You know, I just want the game. You know, that's all it really comes down to. I just want the game, and I want to know if I'm going somewhere next weekend.
Yeah.
You know, I want to go to a game next weekend. Where? You know?
I agree. It's tough. It's tough, and we haven't really talked about it, but it's heartbreaking for fans too. Fans invest not just their money to go to a game, but they go buy merchandise. They show up. They root for their favorite player. They bring their kids because it's affordable. You could bring your whole family. I don't know. I couldn't bring my whole family to an NFL game, and I only got 2 kids. You know, so I'm looking at it like, you know, this is still a great product.
Mm-hmm.
Let's clean the thing up, and now is the time. Just like you're saying, Scott. I love dialogue like this because what it does is it spurs ideas, and nothing great has ever happened in this world without great enthusiasm. I'm telling you that right now. And it's a subset from, you can quote Ralph Waldo Emerson on it. Exactly what he said years and years ago as a poet, right? You have got to have great enthusiasm to make things work. But you got to get people to buy into all of that because you're giving them something legitimate to buy into. You're not just trying to say, hey, here's a shiny penny over here, come get it. You're showing them something that they want to be a part of, that they want to put their money into every week, that they want to bring their family to every week, that they have pride. They can walk away and say, you know what? I went to a game this weekend. It was a lot of fun. And my kids got autographs after the game. They got to see, Christian catch a touchdown, and it was awesome. And I got to meet him after the game. And I got to
They
get
got to keep a ball, right? They got to keep a
I
ball.
just love all those things. And it's
That's
a beautiful part of the game that is missing right now when fans feel like they've been ripped off.
So I think we kind of, just like everyone else, we kind of run the.
We don't want the Temu AFL.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't even be from Wish.
We don't want that. We don't want the Alibaba AFL. I mean, we want the real thing. We want the real product, and even if we have to, cut ties with what's not necessary, it needs to be done, and so it can thrive. We don't want just like you don't want a cancer on your team. You got to make sure that you cut ties with anything that's unnecessary, and it really needs to be done early. We should have had a lot of this stuff done after week 1 going into week 2. It should have said, what?
It should have been done before week 1.
It should have been done before week 1, but that's also the knowledge thing, and people that know the history and the background of this game. If we have people that actually are in the know the history of how the first time it shut down, the second time it shut down, the teams that have thrived and have went under, the people that have actually been in the fire, that's a whole different story, because you know what? History is going to repeat itself if you have people that are coming in just, we know what we've seen on TV or what we read on Wikipedia. Because there is no YouTube or no history, like I said before, of really anything from 2012 to 2018 or 2016, 2017 season. Like, we don't know the real that went down. The Olive, like we had talked about before, the Olive Garden game. You talk about the Cleveland and Pittsburgh game. We literally remember that one when they were on the field and we were going around the stadium in Pittsburgh, sitting out for the Union, sitting out in Kansas City, guys almost being locked out of their house. People have no understanding of how, on the fly a lot of this stuff has been, and just production wise, the entertainment factor of it, that it's really, it's not glittering. It's not, it wasn't gold in the beginning. It was all being a working progress to build it back up, to restore to what it, or try to restore to what it used to be, and not allow it to get to where it was before it went under, where people where they couldn't pay anymore, because of the bankruptcies and stuff like that. So they're trying to keep we want the continuity of the game.
Glenn said in this little comment, he said every league has started with issues. That's true. Just don't walk away from the issues.
Right.
Own the issues.
Up to it.
Right?
Make
accountability. Make an effort to address them direct once you see it. Don't let it linger. That's a thing that's a common issue. At times I see in a lot of even the smaller leagues or stuff I've followed recent years. It's like, I don't know. Make a consistent effort.
The grass isn't always greener, though.
No, you're right. But I think, again, open dialogue, right, and having the ability to say to your people what's going on is going to be the key to the whole thing. And I just want to see more football jobs. I think it's a good thing. I think more opportunities for fans to encourage these young athletes, and for coaches to mentor young coaches. I mean, we got a lot of guys former players that are trying to coach right now, and that have been, walking out of situations because they're not financially viable or solvent, or they're not but they're also not getting mentored. They're not having the ability to be on a staff where somebody can say, look, this is how we do it, and this is why we do it. And you can do it great because you were a great player, but you need to learn this, and you need to help out with this, and teach them the professionalism of what we're doing. We've all been through that, and it happens at every level, whether you're a high school coach, a college coach, an NFL coach. There's a hierarchy. There's a way to teach people. We're missing that step when we lose teams. We're missing the opportunities for those players that gave their lives. And there was a player that died on the field, Al Lucas, right? And so there are guys that actually gave their life in an arena football game. And there are a lot of guys that got hurt so badly, like James Guidry and other guys that have, injuries that they can't hardly walk or whatever, but they wouldn't train those memories. But what we need to do is take care that we nurture those coaching abilities. We nurture those playing abilities. We nurture the ability to sustain the game, because the tradition or the backlog of events enables us to move forward in a positive way. And I think we all own that responsibility, whether you ever coached in the league, played in the league, officiated in the league, worked in the front office. You own that responsibility to be able to push it forward, to help those people grow in that game. And I think that's the big crying shame to me. I want to see that happen in all of these leagues. And the Arena Football League to be viable, I think that's very possible once again. But it's going to take the now action, not the wish.
Absolutely. And and just like Charles said, I was gonna piggyback off that, man. I read that status by Demo Donovan Morgan.
Yeah.
The other day, and
class guy.
For me, without getting super emotional, because I've been trying to really hold back. That shit broke my heart. Like seeing Demo put that on his status, knowing that Demo hit me up before this league even started back up, and word coming out and asking about trying to find a job, knowing that him of all people, with his resume, his extensive resume, his background, the body of work that he's put in, one of the best receivers to do it, one of the best entertainers also in the league to do it, on this, the likes of Tiger Jones, entertaining in the end zone, doing the Captain Morgan. Let's not, forget that he's done that with the LA Kiss. He has done so much to be able, at first, guys like him deserve jobs as in coaching jobs.
Yes.
To be able to be, bringing up these next elite players, giving them the opportunity, teaching them, mentoring them.
Seeing such an opportunity for those players to be mentored,
and an opportunity to be mentored by someone like him. I met Damian Harold, didn't get to play against him, but guess what? When I met Damian Harold, I was like, oh my fucking God, it's Damian Harold.
Yeah.
I would play against this dude. I would love to go against somebody like him. This is one of the best to do. Eddie Brown, same thing. Go. You know what I mean? Like
he coached for me in Pittsburgh, right? I had him and Leroy Thompson on my staff.
Exactly.
We had this. That's the responsibility you have, right? And what also is missing in this whole thing, it's not the NFL. Like the NFL, a head coach gets fired, he's got the golden parachute. He walks away. The rest of the staff got to find a job. In this situation, Demo's got a family, right? They were counting on having that money from him coaching, and he's counting on that opportunity to springboard him into something better.
Changing the whole life.
All of that is just washed away. And these young families are getting just shattered in false hopes and miscommunication. And I that is what really breaks my heart, having been through this business for so long.
Absolutely. That's the crucial part. You got people like, and they're not even from Iowa. Demo lives in Texas. Romaine, he's from the East Coast. You know what I mean? Like these guys are leaving their families and or bringing their families and banking on these contracts that they have signed to be honored, and it falls through. You're telling me I'm not getting paid now. Well, what am I going to do with the bills that I have that are still coming? The baby that I have that needs food, the wife that the wife that's going to be on my back, that you putting me in the line of fire now. Like, what do you really want me to do? You know what I mean? Like it's, I've been there also, where it's like, okay, now it's back against the wall. What do I do? How am I going to figure this out? I had to do it I had to do it in Cleveland, 2014, after the Arena Bowl. I had to basically figure it out because honestly, when I was moving around so much from that year, LA Kiss, going from Kiss to Trenton, playing at the arena that they really could have had the New Jersey team and just made a New Jersey team instead of Philly, in Trenton, New Jersey. Played there with the Trenton Steel or Freedom at the Trenton Freedom, then Trenton Steel. Then that was my warm-up games. That's what I did and tried to make money because it was a way of being able to still stay in shape, get film, and still have hopes of playing in the AFL, even though I knew I was going to be able to sign with a team somewhere. But you want to stay ready because you never know. You know what I mean? Guys are already going in this league, and you're like trying to map out your next play, how much is going to get paid, how much you're going to get, what is going to happen when I leave here with this bills here for rent, going here, leaving my family. No, if you got to take the whole family. At that time, I'm literally with, 8 months in about to be due, and a daughter on the way. Yeah. And then after the Arena Bowl, and that's literally coming right before playoffs, then trying to figure out how am I going to make that happen after the fact of going home once the season's over, because you have to move out of where you're at. You got to have to figure out your life all over again, start and stop every time. What job am I going to be able to go to once I stop this job that's going to be ready for the next one? And what city? And what city?
Right.
Because if you're not from where you're playing at, you're going to either have to go home or figure out somewhere else you can go that's financially able to make it happen. Me, I literally had to get a car that didn't work, ended up breaking down, getting home, couldn't fly back. So driving all my stuff because he couldn't pack everything up. Car breaks down, literally in New Mexico, stuck, trying to figure that out after the season. We just literally lost to Arizona in Arena Bowl. That's the reality of what happens, trying to get back to Los Angeles. Yeah. And that's just stories of what really happens. That's reality. Now, mind you, grace of God, got out the situation, with the baby and my, and my family at the time. It was just, and it's a support system that I had that helped me out. But everybody doesn't have a support system like that, because I had players that were also grinding and struggling, were homeless. Guys were trying to figure out, man, I can't get my phone bill on. And literally just coming from playing a season, 18 games.
A long season.
A long season. We're not talking 10 games right now. We're talking about guys having to figure that out. They don't know what really goes on. You're starting and stopping, and then you're hoping that you can get picked up or your film can get you to the next level. And if that doesn't happen, reality's hitting you in the face that either you're not going back to that next team, or you're going to have to find another team that's going to want to pick you up that you balled out against the season before, and hope that you get picked up for a roster the next year to keep going.
It's tough because it's a long season on hard turf, and your film is your resume. That's all you have. The season's over with. You don't have a fat contract to go train for 6 months. You've got to be able to figure that out, figure out where you need to go. And how many of us at 22, 23 years old had it all figured out? Figure out past next week, right?
No.
If we the big story,
I thought I had it figured out.
Firebird. The funny story was, do I have enough money to go out to the bar with my buddies, and can I buy a new pair of boots?
Oh,
sounds about right.
Priorities, right? When you're in your 20s,
right?
Now fast forward to when you're in your 30s and you got a family, the priorities shift, right? And so that's what kills me with these players and the coaches that in these situations that they're in right now. Hopefully, they could be made whole somehow. People will do the right things, and then we can retool this whole deal and finish the season up, and then figure a way to not ever have this happen again moving forward.
Absolutely.
We did have some football played this weekend too.
Yeah,
we did.
So, and I'll tell you what, it started out with a bang. Thursday night should have been on NFL Network. Another huge missed opportunity of an amazing game, not nationally broadcast. But I'll tell you what, after that, the rest of the games were duds.
Well, and I'll tell you, that first one, that Thursday night, highlighted everything I love about like the arena style in particular, with the net system and how everything is run with more of the focus on pass first, heavy concept. But the special teams, especially, are what shine, because you look at that scoreboard, it's 10-point differential, Albany and Nashville. But everyone that has talked about this game has talked specifically about the 14-point swing at the end of the half. Those two key misplaced kick returns that just completely open it wide open. Or, well, there are two key misplaced ones, but at the end of the half, you had one that helped make a 14-point swing. And I think that was something that, when I've talked to people about that game in particular, when we were watching with some groups, that one to me stuck out just because it does highlight something I love. I love the controlled chaos of the special teams units in the AFL or in arena when the net systems are up. And it highlighted what can be, but it also shows, again, two teams that I think have done it right. And kind of as Coach James has talked, at least show what a good standard of AFL football can be, putting things completely together. Because I'm with you, Scott. Besides that, it was either blowouts or the other game of the week I had was just surprisingly
horrible.
The other game of the week in the weekend, I was shocked in Orlando how it turned out.
I was so upset.
That was the ugliest game I've seen forever.
But you're right. Special teams, special players. Go on and say it. Pat Clark, hey, man, teammate, that is how you kick the ball. Because when you do bar balls and when that net, you never know where it goes. That kick, hey, he did his thing in that game. And that was what arena football absolutely is about. Unpredictable, chaos on the floor. But those nets bring even more chaos. And as an Ironman and as a kick returner, I hate that. I'm gonna also say that. But if as a teammate, I love it. Because as soon as I saw the ball free off the net, I said, oh,
this gets interesting.
That's instantly changing momentum. And then it happened again. I said, wait, Nashville actually might have a chance to beat them. And it really gave me that, like, well, I know we love Albany, and we know that they have been there, done that. But I started hearing names on Kokinos' team of guys that were kind of very familiar to me. AFL 2 guys, AFL guys that kind of from Force guys, Georgia Force guys, also that kind of trickled back in on that Nashville team. And I was like, wait, CJ Johnson. Wait, wait. There's a couple of these guys on this team. So they are definitely a dark horse now in my eyes. Like, if we were saying going into playoffs, I would be absolutely worried about Pat Clark in that damn front line that they got. Because that front line, I mean, we know that's where end all be all kind of arena football, where it can control the game and it can control everything. That's word to Cliff Dukes and Joe Sykes.
Except in Kansas City.
Guys that know how to play the game, right? Guys that know how to play the game and guys that know how to teach the game get that early season leg up. And I think the offenses lag a little bit because, let's face it, there's probably a lot of distractions too, right? You're at your practice facility, a lot of rumors going on. Maybe some things aren't quite right. Maybe guys practice, whatever the situations are that we don't know about, that behind the scenes they affect their play. That affects the offense and timing more than it affects the defensive side of the ball. And special teams are the equalizer, just like you just said, Christian. I mean, those bar balls, it's funny when you talk about arena football. I go back in the day with the Desperados when Jerry Jones owned the team. He said after a playoff loss, they had hands down the best team. And, Will McClay was close. And bar balls cost them the game. And he said publicly, he said, the best team doesn't always win in arena football. That's why I really don't like the game. Because it equalizes the net. You got to teach your guys how to play those bar balls. You got to have a kicker that can attack it. I mean,
that Cleveland team.
I had Mark Lewis, who was unbelievable at it. I had Steve Nick, who was unbelievable at it. I had a bunch of guys that were great kickers. Ernesto LaCoy.
Ernesto too.
Yeah. And he's still kicking. But guys like that understand what to do, give you the leg up, especially early in the season. So I love seeing it.
Well, yeah, Christian's Cleveland team made the Arena Bowl. It was not an undefeated team as long as they went undefeated. But man, those certain plays, they just hit at the right time. And they just kept
how many Philly, right?
Yeah, how many ESPN top 10s that year?
Said what,
Center's
three last second wins
last
against Philly
second
that year?
wins. Shout out to my cousin T. Lou, Theron Lewis with the catches too, and Goody and Goodman, and man, we had some guys just like some dogs. Dominic Goodwin, Dominic Jones.
We had some battles. The boys in Pittsburgh took you down once, though.
Definitely, for sure. Oh man, it was some definitely the Pittsburgh and Cleveland battles were absolutely heated.
We were 1-1 that year. I was with you guys, and we swept the Soul. Yep. I thought we had, we wound up being 15-3, and the team was 4-14 the year before I got there, right? So I thought the Pittsburgh, we had a run. We were going to make a run at the end of the year with a few key injuries, and Cleveland was hot going down the end of the thing. And so that's what makes arena football great. Those rivalries, like when you played Pittsburgh against Cleveland, they just hated each other because of proximity.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
I had Coffee Jones talking in my ear the whole game. I mean, I'm trying to call plays. I'm like, hey, Coffee, go sit down, man.
Right. Give me a break.
But we had characters like that. It was what made it great. I mean, you had fans poking you with objects in the middle of the game, if you were on the road.
Trying to talk to you. Yeah. Mokeet Ruffin. Oh, yeah. He was 1-2. And then you had Spokane with Death Valley. Oh, they were nasty. Absolutely.
So I always had my cowbell or drum everywhere I went.
Yeah. Hate to say it was one time, and I know PJ's probably gonna be pissed that I didn't say this story. PJ Barry, we're in Spokane, and there's a sign. I don't know how the hell they even got this like perfect timing, but PJ's looking up into the field in the back end of the box where we're at, and one of the Spokane fans, them insane fans from Spokane with it says Dingle on it.
Yeah.
And PJ's last name.
Yeah.
So it's just like, bro, they was like, really? Like, where did they catch that at? Like, I don't even know how they even.
That's what made Spokane beautiful to go play there.
Spokane was raw with it. And this is before I even played for them. I was just like, oh, I never want to get on
play
y'all
harder.
side.
Like we went to Spokane, we were down 40 seconds to go. We're down by 11 points, and we beat them at Spokane. That was with the Blaze in 2012, and it was those are rare moments where you have a game like that. But the crowd was on you the whole time. You go to Arizona, the crowd's yelling at me, calling me Billy Idol, all this other kind of stuff. They're just everybody knows you and knows your name, and they Wikipedia you. They go through your they talk about
personal.
It's beautiful. I love beautiful. Kansas City. To see my man here with the face mask on and yelling at me the whole game. Whatever it was always so much fun to go to those venues because you knew that this was big time for them, and it was big time for us. We always said treat it like our NFL, and we always tried to do that. And I love that Capper just said, thank goodness they switched game balls. Capper, you're right on this one thing. I'll tell you what, Tim, my biggest pet peeve in indoor football is no composite balls, please. Hate those.
They're not working.
Play with a real football.
Right. It's special teams. That's not working.
No, it's football.
Because that was I run with Tim. I believe that was a difference maker in special teams that night. Because no one's getting the net. No one's getting deuces. The ball's just not flying off the foot like it should. Yeah. That's actually another change I would make right now is kickoffs are using a different ball. If you want to play the rest of the game with a composite, fine. It's not ideal, but whatever. But all kickoffs, all special teams should be with a different ball.
They have kicking balls in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
What's the difference, right?
So, but like I said, I don't want to keep you all too long. Like I said, we're already an hour and a half in, so we're good at dragging this on.
I do have a question though.
Did the wrap it up sign from upstairs?
Did any of you guys see Sean Merriman post what he posted?
I did see that.
So I'm curious as just in
general,
filling
the folks watching.
Oh well, I mean, Sean Merriman asked about basically what platform was that? That was it the sporting?
He was on X asking kind of quote tweeting if you're talking the same thing I am.
Which part did you see? Because I saw on Twitter, so I saw on X, yes, on what he was asking as far as
I got
Viry or whatever that. What's that streaming platform they were using?
Right, Vire.
Yeah.
Vire or Viry or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not finding it here. I thought I had it saved. But yeah, I mean, he's interested. He wants to join.
Right. And you have people that are interested and want to join, but have no idea how to even go about it.
Even with the hot best things have been, they still want in.
Well, even then, I think what caught my eye was, he's asking this question about how can I jump in, and sure enough, you have San Diego Strike Force president asking to DM him to
Yeah,
say,
Bert.
"Do that.
Yeah,
Come on over here."
right.
So
Taking
again, it
advantage
just
of
shows you got to be on top of things.
it.
No, for sure. Shout out Mike Lou too.
So yeah, the rest of the games were really. I mean, I don't even want to break them down because they're just bad. I mean, yeah, that Orlando game was 0-6 going into halftime. I mean, that's putrid. Iowa only scoring 18. You know what? They came with 17 players and no starting wide receivers.
Yeah.
I want to know
it is what it is.
Who's the OC in Orlando? I know it's not. I know it's not Scipio.
Supposed to be.
Supposed to be Scipio.
Because I saw EJ on the field.
Mhm.
Unless he's getting fed in the mic, I'm not coaching
Yeah.
right now, and I'm not playing. So I'm gonna say what I say. Sip, I take over if you're not running it right now.
Sam,
Somebody
Get your quarterback under center.
Yeah, get him. You know, get him right. Do it. You know, get him in the motion.
EJ's one of the guys. I love EJ. He'll get it figured out.
They're gonna get it right over there. No. EJ gonna get it right. I know Orlando's gonna get it right. I know they're gonna be there in the end. That's for sure. I already see Orlando as a team that's. Yeah, they're definitely going to be it's going to be between. Or obviously, we all know it's going to be between Albany, Orlando, or Nashville. Now, of course, I don't really.
Texas.
West Texas.
Ooh, the dark horse. Yeah, Sig's got.
Sig definitely has.
I really like West Texas.
Sig could come out and really just do his thing with that. Now the quarterback kind of he has to get it together with making his reads, but
It's still 0-6.
Still
Guru, though, he'll get him.
He'll get him right.
That surprised me that Jonathan Bain was having struggles getting communication down. Because keep in mind, I mean, they have.
He's
I know
nice
roster
too.
construction is one thing, but like him and Devin Wilson alone have quite the rapport from previous years in Jacksonville. So it shocked me to see that drop off. I mean, credit Orlando compared to a Georgia Force travel team that is definitely a different step above, and definitely Orlando has a great setup for defense. But
Billings,
I don't know. I was just surprised that Bain struggled the way he did with some of the repetition and I would say consistent chemistry he's had with these receivers like him, or even Outlaw. Last week against Georgia, him and Lonnie Outlaw got back together, and Lonnie has had 2 down years in Orlando, and I was glad to see him getting more involved because they didn't use him as well under previous coaching regimes with the Predators back in the NAL. I was glad to see him getting some more reps again because he should be getting targets all the time. Big lengthy guy like him,
throw it up, he go get it.
No reason to not be using him whatsoever. So
I agree here. I'd say Billings another group that you got to look out for because you got the 2 Seds.
They'll sneak up on you.
You got the 2 Seds.
But 101D, you can't get better than that. My man 1-3, the hefty. I'm telling you, the lefty can throw the ball. Yeah. Still, out there right now, he's dropping dimes. So I don't know. That could be a tough group.
I got Billings out the West, that's for sure. I just don't know. I just don't know if Billings is going to be able to step up against a team like Albany. As far as matching up,
Dallas Desperados were also the best team in the league,
athlete versus athletes. I'm talking about, player versus player. I seen what Billings had. Now, but Billings' strong point is absolutely going to be the veteranship of their coaches.
Yeah,
that's
going to be
hands down.
Helps a ton.
That helps a whole lot. So strategizing, scheming, film breakdown, the analogies, everything will be top tier as much as you could possibly get. But do they have the guys that are going to be tired in the fourth quarter and remember and know the rules of the game and play it properly and not make mental mistakes or even, be down against a team that will probably put up 50 or 60 on them, and then they'll have to play a 30-point comeback? Will they be able to have the mental capacity to be like, it's still 0-0, we can come back and win? Mm-hmm. As opposed to teams that have already been there and done that, and players that have been there and done that. You got some on the team that can do that, but when you have a team that has 1 or 2 or maybe 3 that have been there, and then you got 12 others, 15 others that have never been there, I know. Trust me, Kansas City.
Yeah.
Trust me. I've been on teams where it's like, yeah, we can come back, we can win. but then you got players that will go out there and just shit the bed, literally just like completely fold like origami and be like, we're kicking it in because we're not going to come back.
Yeah,
And that happens.
The two SEDs will get them
Two
going.
SEDs will get them right.
If you teach, I think you're right, because you got a lot of guys that haven't been there. But when you've got leadership that's been there, I think that they can coach them up in such a way that all of a sudden they gain confidence, and that team catching fire here the second half of the season or whatever it winds up being, that's a dangerous crew.
Yep.
So I don't know. I think it's very interesting with all these teams that will survive the onslaught of the first couple games, missteps and all the deals with folding and all that stuff. The ones that remain, I think, have got good coaching. They got players that believe, and if they can get everything on track for the last few weeks, it could be some entertaining football at the right time while they're trying to regroup.
Absolutely. Orlando picked up my week 1 player too, my Iron Man player. So let me also put that together.
Did. So that just made their defense ridiculous.
That just made something just a whole lot more different too. I just wanted to go ahead and put that out there as far as with the Orlando side, because when you have a jack and a receiver at that height and that can be athletic like that guy.
Week 1, he was deadly.
Yeah, so you got it. That's cool.
Yeah, they jumped on that quick.
Yeah, the Preds have always been super active in the transactions list the last several years. I'm not shocked, but definitely I think better place than they have been in recent years to jump up and get some wins under their belt once again. It's been 3 seasons in any league since they've been a playoff team. So, franchise is definitely looking to get back up there if they can. No doubt about it.
Could be worse. Could be Jacksonville.
Restaurant the hungry.
And I don't want to belabor the whole Orlando offense, but you realize they scored 2 touchdowns in that game, and one of them was a quarterback run from shotgun.
Oh yeah,
that was.
Oh man,
Drew's a great athlete, but yeah, I mean it's not his best performance.
It's not ideal.
No.
So, like I said, we don't. I mean, I don't know. We need to go over each game. Like I said, they're all almost all have the same scores.
I do want to point out, even though this was a blowout against Billings, got to give props to Washington. Talk about, we talked about earlier with like the standardization and the look, feel. The game day, at least from what I saw their game day setup, I was overall pretty impressed with their performance. I was a little worried given other brand new teams in the league and how they've approached game day so far.
And we hadn't seen anything. No field pictures, no anything out of Washington.
Washington surprised me. I'll give it that. So, yeah.
So, all right. Well, we do need to wrap it up, but real quick, I'm going to run over the games. I don't know that we need to give our picks, but what game are you excited about? We got Billings at Rapid City, West Texas at Washington, Salina at Nashville, Minnesota at Albany, and Southwest Kansas at Wichita. What game are you interested in seeing this week?
Salina, Nashville for me, I think. I don't think any of them stick out as like what we've seen the last 2 weeks where I can pinpoint like heavy hitters right away. But I do want to see if Salina is in that upper tier, and I think this is a good test because Nashville has shown that hey, they can stick with the big boys that have put together rosters well and have the good coaching, And I do think Salina is one of those better run organizations, both coaching wise and also how they put their roster together. They did lean a lot on previous talents they have trusted over the years. And I think that's going to be what we see is can they match up well with, as we've talked, these, former arena football or even some of the outdoor talents that have come out there. Because my guy, Reggie Howard from the USFL, XFL days, he's on that roster now too, part of that front three that's been killing it for them the last 2 weeks. So I want to see that matchup. Like, can Salina keep pace and play up to Nashville? Because I think that's going to be the bigger question. Can they play up? I don't think Nashville's going to play down to their opponent. I think they're clearly one of the cream of the crop in the league. But can Salina prove that they're going to be possibly up in that upper tier as well? That's what I want to see.
Well, for me, it's Minnesota going to Albany. And I say that now, Firebird, hometown, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But so I'm always anxious to see how the Firebirds are going to do. But it's an intriguing matchup to me because you got Minnesota traveling, and according to everything I've been reading, there's a little bit of upheaval going on there, whatever. Hopefully they can put that behind them. They've had a good week in practice. But it's that matchup where you got Ricky Foggy, who used to play for the Red Dogs, going back to the Albany Firebirds. That's an old school matchup. Jeff Lutz is over there with Minnesota too, and he's a former Firebird. And you got all these kind of things that go on with this that historically make it intriguing for me. Plus, you got that arena at Albany is when they play on a weekend, it does much better than a Thursday crowd-wise usually.
Yes.
And so I'm really anxious to see how that rebounds from a crowd perspective. But I know they've got a very good team as well. So with Tony Bowick coaching there, another Firebird guy, and all
Shout out Coach Bowick. That was my head coach.
Man, I just love seeing all that flavor coming back.
Love seeing him back.
Yes.
I know it dates me quite a bit, but it gives me that intrigue that I want to look at it and see. Let's see how these old cats are going to go to battle as coaches now. So it's going to be fun.
Absolutely.
CWise, what are you looking forward to this week?
I mean, Coach James kind of just said it with that game for sure. But that Washington
West Texas.
That Washington, West Texas. Is it in West Texas also?
In Washington.
It's in Washington, yeah.
So I don't know what they have going on in Washington. And I don't know if we spoke on this much, but I like how their field was looking. And I like how they kind of had everything put together, or what they're doing there. Putting
those helmets are sick.
The helmets.
Yeah, they've surprised me a lot.
Shout out to Washington, their ownership group. I'm on the West Coast. If y'all ever need some help consulting, whatever, coaching, holla at me. I'm close, I also, I'm playbook ready too. You holla at me. Hey, don't sleep. We definitely got the playbook. But,
giving you
offense and defense. But nonetheless, I am very curious to see what they're going to do against Coach Siegfried and West Texas and their team, and how Siegfried and West Texas are going to bounce back from the mistakes that they made last week and be able to clean that up and see if they can put a full game together this week against Washington. Also, Washington being a team where you don't know what you're going to get. So teams like Washington and Oregon are so hard to really kind of gauge because you don't know what they're really capable of. Yeah. I myself made the mistake of saying that Oregon would not even put up more than 40 points possibly this year. Yeah. They shut me up putting 63 up on regardless if it's a travel or however the team is, they put up 63 points, period. Yeah. So kudos to them in doing that. But definitely want to see how Washington comes out against this team, how their strategy and their game plan is going to be against this predominantly veteran defense. And also I want to see Calvin Vance toting that rock out there looking like Derrick Ross a little bit with that at that fullback position. I love seeing the fullbacks, active in the game and running the ball. Yep. Of course, IFL has the small ones, but the bigger guys are what make the arena football game.
The big guys get them.
Yeah,
that's what makes the game. You know what I mean? So yeah, absolutely. I want to see a tight end pop too. I haven't seen that yet.
Oh yeah. Or tight end screen. Yeah,
I haven't seen a tight end screen.
Pop pass.
I haven't even seen a corner post yet. That's
I think it happened last weekend in Southwest Kansas.
Did it?
You know what? It's so big man scorer this week.
Oh, a tight end pop.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have to double check. It was on the opposite end zone from where I was, but I think.
Yeah, me and Mike Washington was just talking about that. We were like, man, we ain't seen a PCP. We ain't, post corner post. We ain't seen a dragon route. Sail comeback. I ain't seen none of that yet. Like, come on, let's open the playbook a little bit.
Yeah.
Get it going. We want to see some real arena football out here.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm with you, Zach. That line in Nashville is just intriguing. There's just something about that matchup. It could be a blowout. I think they're going to keep it competitive. And I think I'm going to have to adopt Salina as going to be my new team. I think next closest to me. So
cool.
There you go. There you go.
But anyways, guys, I know we all got to cut. We got to cut it. But thank you so much as always. CWise, we'll be back.
Appreciate
Zach,
you, Coach James.
On you, Zach.
Love it, guys.
Thank you, Coach James.
Nice meeting you, Coach. Seriously, great conversation.
Yeah. So, again, thank you all so much, and we'll definitely be doing this.
Thank you to the fans, for real. Everybody in the community that still are sticking through, that are still staying tuned, that are still having faith and supporting the league, that are still, just behind it and trying to stay positive. And just like us, we wanted to thrive. and let's keep this thing going and make it the best that we could possibly make it, because it's really going to take us, especially with the front office. We're the ones that's going to have to put the pressure on it.
Yeah.
It matters. It
You
does
know what
matter.
they say. If you're going through hell, keep going.
Keep going.
There you
Absolutely.
go. Yeah, that's a good way to end this. So, all right, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for everybody coming on. We will be doing this again soon. Take care.